Hi guys, today we are making potting mix. I tried my best to get me in the frame and the potting mix, but I'm making too much, so you just get the potting mix. You don't need to make your own. I just prefer to because it's fun. When it comes to deciding how much potting mix to make, you have to kind of start with the Coir, if you're using Coir. So this is a standard block. And if you try and make, like, basically you can't break it up. I've tried with a bread knife. I've not tried very hard. I'm sure if you went at it with a saw, possibly. But to make it easier, I just base all my measurements. Oh my god, I'm filthy already. I just base all my measurements off this one thing of Coir. And what you want to do first is just add some water to it. I'm just using some spare water from the aquarium because I've got it, but I normally just use tap water. I actually have a pan that I normally use this for, that I usually do this with, but I've got this potting tray, so I thought, why not? And then gradually it will just flake apart. And Coir, it's an alternative to moss. There are differences, but I prefer Coir for environmental reasons. Depending on where you get your moss from, there's varying levels of sustainability, but here in the UK I just prefer to use Coir. I'm not saying it's perfect because it isn't, but it's hard to find perfect media for things like this, and Coir is a byproduct of coconuts. It's just coconut husk, and as you can see, it grows quite large. I personally probably wouldn't recommend making your own potting mix unless you've got a lot of plants, because it is cheaper in the long run, like when you're talking economies of scale. But if you've only got a few plants to repot, I would just buy some perlite or orchid bark and then just a houseplant potting mix. It's fine. It's made for that purpose, so it's really not going to do your plants any harm. I just prefer making my own. Could have used gloves, couldn't I? A bit late now. I do have a blog post that goes. I have a couple actually that go through the exact measurements that I use. But to be perfectly honest, I don't use exact measurements because you really don't need to. So and sometimes, like, say I run out of orchid bark, I'll put a bit more perlite in. If I don't have worm castings, I'll just be a bit more vigilant about fertilising. I've been known not to bother with charcoal at all. So just do what you can. You can pot plants in just Coir. I've seen it done. I would not recommend it because this stuff holds moisture. So this is what's going to hold the moisture in the soil and stop your plant from drying out. I make quite an airy mix because I find it's better for the roots. The roots develop much stronger because they get more oxygen to them. But you can make it, if you are an overwaterer, you can make it a lot airier. You can put in a lot more drainage. If you're an underwaterer, then put less in. A little bit more. When it comes to storing the made up soil, I just keep it in an airtight plastic box, but what you can do is just wait until several plants need potting at once and use it all. I mean, storing it doesn't do any harm, but when you've got a box of soil, you need somewhere to put it, and storage is not always easy to come by. So it's not, there's no like excess water, but if you squeeze the coir, it comes out like that. Right, that'll do it. I'm going to wash my hands. Next, I'm going to add in some orchid bark. Ooh, scissors. Scissors? I was all ready to film over by the fish tanks, but I couldn't get everything in the frame, and fish tanks are notoriously difficult to move. When I say I don't measure, don't measure. It don't smell great. A pile. The thing is, as you go along, if you discover that your bark isn't your bark, if you discover that your potting mix is drying out too quickly, not drying out quickly enough, you can just add more in. And you will also find like different plants will use different, will, you know, one plant might love this and another plant won't so much. What the hell is that? Oh, it's just a white bit. This is maybe a bit chunky, but I can't be bothered to make it any smaller. Right, next I'm going to add in some perlite. So the orchid bark just adds a bit of drainage, so it's big chunky bits, and it'll create little pockets around the coir for air to go in and for water to go past. It absorbs a little bit of water, nothing spectacular, but as it breaks down it will also release nutrients into the soil. Perlite has no nutrients, it's completely inert, but it also creates little air pockets and it holds onto some water. I'll probably do, that was just like 2 scoops. I'll put in the description box like an actual recipe as well as links to the blog posts. Right, so next up we have carbon, and as I said, carbon is something that if I don't have it I won't use it. It just will filter out some of the impurities. Gonna measure it? Probably not. Right, how much is this? So this is a kilo. Doesn't really matter how much it weighs because it's by volume. I'm just gonna pour it in. And then the last ingredient is worm castings. Now, a bit of a disclaimer. Worm castings can be quite traumatising if you're not used to them because they do come with worms in them. Live worms, so you know, I know they're fresh. But just to warn you. And then I tend to use about the same amount of worm castings and charcoal. So that was maybe half a bag, a third of a bag. And the bag is 2 litres. So this is maybe 5 parts coir, 3 parts orchid bark, 3 parts perlite, 1 part charcoal, 1 part worm castings. And then I'm just gonna stir it all in. Right, so say this much potting soil from a shop, from a garden centre, set you back, say £10. So I bought all my ingredients for £40. And I've probably got enough for another, well, I've got loads more coir, I've got another 5 blocks of coir. 2 bags of worm castings came, got loads more orchid bark, so it's probably cheaper, but as I say, if you've got £10 to your name, there's no point me saying to you, I'll go and spend £40 on potting soil ingredients. So So in that case, you're better off just getting your potting soil and some drainage material. This is really weird, but it smells really nice. It smells really fresh. I hope that was useful. I'm sorry I wasn't in the frame, but I tried. I wasn't that bothered, to be honest. The only way I could get myself in was like a really quite frightening angle. But I am here, hello. Next up, I was going to pot stuff up in this video, but it's just too long and it takes so long for me to airdrop stuff because my internet's so rubbish. And that's going to be another video. It's finally time to repot that anthurium. I'm going to split it in half and do one half in lacquer and one half in this. If I can get it split, we'll just have to see. Right, so come back tomorrow and you can watch me use this. It'll be really exciting, I'm sure. If you have any questions, just let me know. I got all this stuff from eBay. There's often discount if you buy in bulk, so if you've got a lot of plants, that can be worth looking into. I don't personally, just because I don't use as much potting soil as I used to, because so many plants go in lacquer. Oh, and I prefer lacquer because it's reusable. I have no idea what that is. It probably came from here. Right, so thank you very much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.